Listen to this episode if you want a real life case study of how we increased one of my clients' profits from 5% to 20% for a 7-figure product-based business. This is going to be what we changed, what are some of the major takeaways here, and what you need to know about increasing your profits for your brand. Here we often talk about sales growth, which is overall revenue. How can you grow your business, grow your sales? But we don't always talk about profit, and profit really is the health of your business. Of course, we need sales in order to have profit, but if you have 7 figures and you're only making a marginal amount of actual profit at the end of the day, is it worth it? Can you invest back into your business? And is your business actually healthy enough for it to continue to grow? Is it secure? Do we have in savings? Can we actually make some major investments? So of course, my major goal is your sales, but your goal overall does at some point have to be profit. So this client came to me making over 7 figures in revenue. They have a small team, have been around for a while, have a great community, but their profit for 2024 was only around $50,000. And they really were trying to save up for a major expansion, a major investment that they wanted to make in their business, but they needed to save more year over year in order to make that happen. So they came to me and they said, how can we optimize to really build a lot more profit without really changing too much of our overall operations, our team, and everything like that? So this is exactly what we did to get them from $50,000 to $200,000 in profit in just 1 year. So by the end of 2025, these were some of their numbers. If you're new here, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. My name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist. I work with some of your favorite brands to help them be the category leaders that they are today. Of course, we talk a lot about profit and sales here, but we talk a lot about branding, marketing, and all of those things. Make sure you subscribe. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. We have 450 episodes out there for you to go and you to binge and you to learn from as well. I have 4 major things that we did for this client, and I want to kind of break down why we did them, what they were. We also are going to talk about what we didn't do, because it's common mistakes that people make when it comes to profit, and then what this actually allows for them to do moving forward and why you really should care. So if you're looking for a very tangible approach to building your profit, this is a really great case study. I just want to note that profit does look different for everybody. I analyze a lot of P&Ls. This exact strategy might not exactly work for you, but it's some things to think about when it comes to profit. Sometimes people are way overspending for their labor. Sometimes they are way overspending for their overall expenses, but these are the things that we change for them. First things first, we looked at their P&L and we were able to analyze. They were hitting benchmarks kind of across the board for marketing, for labor, for overhead, and for costs of goods. So now we kind of had to look at where can we actually optimize. So first things first is we analyzed their SKUs and we minimized many of them. They had so many SKUs on their website. They had rapidly expanded. They probably had hundreds of SKUs on their website, different products, different bundles, different pieces that people could buy. And what we noticed when we looked at their data, they had a very high bounce rate. They had a lot of sessions on their site and they had a very low average order value because people were kind of confused in the buying process. They didn't know where to start. It basically diluted their marketing. They just didn't really have a signature line of products. They didn't have, okay, this is the place to go, this is what to buy, and this is what people buy on repeat. They kind of had a revolving door of just adding new products onto their website, and eventually it actually just confused the buyer more. So what we did is we went in, we analyzed the most profitable, the most desirable, and the most bought right now. And we kind of created this formula to figure out where in the line do we actually just cut down below. If it wasn't profitable, if it wasn't desirable, and it wasn't selling right now, we cut hundreds, at least dozens of products off of their SKUs. Now, I know when people develop SKUs, it's such like an emotional driver behind their business. They love the products that they develop. But a major mistake that we see with especially a brand around 7 figures is you don't actually need a ton of products. You can go with having a signature line and maybe a couple of little drops in between. And that's actually optimized for us to really get some hero products that take off. off. We didn't cut it down to that much where they only had 10 products or so, but we did cut a lot off. And we found that conversion rate was better, add to cart rate was better. We found that the average order value was better because people actually knew what to buy. They had a lot of products that were kind of competing with each other in a very same category or for the exact same purpose. And it was actually just confusing customers. So when you have that, you have very high inventory expenses, lots of overhead, you need more space for it all. And there's actually just a lot of cost to having more products out there. And so this was a major contributor to their profit, is that they needed fewer inventory, fewer top of funnel. They also are making all of their products in-house still. They have a team of a production team. And so there was so much labor, it was so much thing to just keep creating all of these products. So we cut all of those expenses by limiting the amount of SKUs that they had. And it actually improved their revenue, improved their sales overall, which of course at the end of the day did increase their profits as well. The next thing that we did is that we worked on the efficiency of their systems. I don't want to come in and if your labor amount is fine, like your labor percentage hits your benchmarks, I'm not going to come in and cut labor and cut expenses if it doesn't quite make sense. What I see here is we looked at where their efficiencies might be because I just said they had their production and their shipping in-house. What were some of the inefficiencies there that we were paying for people to do that we could actually just outsource? They were putting labels on bottles. They were putting stickers on boxes. They were still doing things in-house because they thought it was actually the cheapest way was to buy the bottles and the stickers and the labels all separately and then have somebody in-house do it. But it was actually just costing them more in labor than to just order custom boxes, custom packaging. So we did invest in custom packaging. So it all came ready to go and all they had to do was fill it. But this ended up being the major contributor to the increase in their profits overall, was because they had a lot of these inefficiencies. And so this is where we really dive into what is your production process? What is your overall shipping process? What does your behind the scenes and your systems look like? Because right now there is probably a leak in your bucket somewhere that it's taking too much time, that it's not actually optimized, that you're actually just milking too much money out of what doesn't actually have to be there, right? And so this was one of the major places that we did was labels, stickers, packaging, anything that they were doing by hand, we basically got manufactured and we were able to actually elevate their packaging. It looked more luxury and they were able to increase their profits. So yes, this was an investment. We spent this money, but at the end of the day, it actually increased their profits by so much because we made some of these changes. Next is that we focused on average order value and retention. When I looked at their data, one of the major gaps that we could see is that the average person was only buying like 1.5 products. And that usually tells me that people were confused on their website because there was too many options. They didn't know what to buy. So they bought their favorite and then that was all that they really needed. We found when we went and looked at their customer data is that the average person was buying the same product every time they came back, maybe with one other kind of accessory to the overall products. And so what we focused on is we focused on average order value and overall retention in the emails, through their marketing, through trying to get people to basically buy over and over again, but also buy more every time that they came. So we built a focus on how to get people to buy multiple products, maybe higher average order value products, and not just their one favorite and going. We found that the marketing was basically keeping them safe. They would buy their same product because it was a safe product for them to buy, but they never really tried anything else and then kept on rebuying those. So we adjusted their marketing to talk more about, why this is a ritual, why this is something that you can explore and it's self-expression, as opposed to just having your favorite, right? As opposed to just saying, pick your favorite, signature, whatever, and that's all that you need. Find your favorite and we'll go from there. And so we basically pared down their marketing to say, hey, this is self-expression. You should have multiple of these. We started to call what they created more of a collection, build on your collection of this product. So this was a change in marketing. It was a lot of changes to messaging, website, emails, things like that. We also added a couple of email funnels here in the retention piece. They had a discovery set within their product, and their discovery set was where most people were starting when they would come, but it was actually overwhelming. And so they never came back because there was a lot going on in that one discovery set. So what we did is we actually optimized that starter set to get people to actually want to come back and buy again and be able to not be overwhelmed by the discovery set. So we helped them in that customer journey of, okay, we bought this, where, we started to want to be a part of your company. Now, how do we get them to want to come back, find their favorite, build their collection, and kind of keep building from there? Also, as always, bundles, similar products on their website, having some of the key apps on your website really make a big difference here for average order value and overall. So of course, bundles, having more gift sets, things like that increase your overall average order value. The next one was that we optimized their website in a big way. We saw that they already had eyes. They were investing in their marketing. They had influencers talking about their products. They had ads running, but yet they didn't have a great overall conversion rate. We saw on launch day, their conversion rate was great. So it told us that their marketing was working, told us they had a great audience, it told us they had a great community. But what they didn't really have is that this cold audience didn't know what was going on with the brand actually to convert very well. So a cold audience wasn't converting. So they were spending money on marketing, but the marketing had a lower-ish return on ad spend or return on investment. And so we had to actually optimize the marketing. So it lowered their customer acquisition cost. Customer acquisition cost is how much it costs you to acquire a customer. And if your average order value is low and your customer acquisition cost is low, let's say your customer acquisition cost is $40 because your marketing isn't actually converting well and your average order value is $38 and you have a low retention, at that point, you're actually losing money for that first sale. And if you can't get them to come back, we never actually find that break-even point. So that's obviously an extreme example, because if it costs you $40 to acquire them and they only spend $38 and they only buy from you once, you lost $2 to try to acquire that customer. It's an extreme example, but this is basically what we saw overall. So we optimized their marketing, we optimized their messaging to actually sell these people at a higher rate. So we added more depth to their website. Of course, limiting their SKUs did help here a lot because people just didn't know where to start. They were confused. We basically helped the customers pick more than one product, keep coming back, but also that first time that they landed on the website, they had to convert better. So what you see here from these four major things is we analyzed their SKUs and we minimized it, which also helped the confusion overall. It was the reason for the low average order value. We also worked on efficiency of systems behind the scenes. So that was just overall efficiency of the brand. We focused on average order value and retention, and we optimized their website to lower the customer acquisition cost. So now their customer acquisition cost is $15, their average order value is $80, and their retention is usually, they purchase from them about 4 times a year, which at $80 each. So if we do that math, all of a sudden, that $20 customer acquisition cost, $15 customer acquisition cost is well worth it. And that is where their profit came in. That is where they were able to really adjust their profits here. Hey, I've been getting some DMs that you may not know what I do outside of hosting this podcast. I actually work with product-based business owners every single day to help them grow and scale their brand. If you really want my eyes one-on-one inside of your business to look at your strategy, to look at your funnels, to look at your data, and to develop your next campaign or bring your business or your idea to life, that is exactly what I do every single day. I've worked with 500 plus businesses across 70 different industries to help them become the next household name in their industry. If you are craving a business brain, a strategic advisor, a data-centered, obsessed person to come into your business and help you bring your idea to life, I'm your gal. Come on over to my Instagram at thisismadisonpage, DM me support. Otherwise, you can click the link in the show notes to apply today. Okay, back to the episode. So you can kind of see how when we look at profits overall, you first have to look at the data. We first have to see what's actually happening. We also have to look at the outwards and the inwards data. So I was looking at their team, at their production, at their systems, but I also was looking at their marketing, at their sales processes, because profit overall comes from all angles of business. And if we can save $5,000 here, $10,000 here, and do some of these other pieces, but we can also optimize behind the scenes, your profit builds quickly. And with your profit, you're able to do so much more in business. I want to really touch home here that we didn't cut major expenses in any of this. I didn't tell them, you don't need to be spending on that. You don't need to be spending on that. Sometimes I have to when it comes to people with their P&Ls, but this client didn't need to cut major expenses. We didn't fire any employees here, but we did actually hire somebody in some of these areas to make it more efficient. So there was an added expense of another employee in here, and we still 4x'd their profitability. We didn't also stop investing in their business. They still were spending money on ads. They still spent money on improving their packaging. They still spent money on, improving their website. We were still investing into their business, but those investments had a quick return because we nearly immediately saw the growth from there. We changed systems, we changed the operations, and we optimized the growth that was already there, the things that were already in motion that just weren't actually effective. This is something around profit and growth overall that oftentimes gets missed, is that profit and growth doesn't just come from adding more or subtracting something drastic. We made a lot of tweaks and adjustments that had a really big impact. We didn't add more to this person's plate. We actually subtracted things from her plate, from having to, revamp her SKUs and her inventory and all of that. What we were able to do is she was already making all of these efforts. The marketing was going out, the ads were going out, people were coming to the website, but they weren't actually working. They weren't actually optimized. They weren't actually efficient. And that is what we changed. We were able to look at the key data metrics that we always look at: conversion rate, add to cart rate, customer acquisition cost, average order value, retention. Those are 5 of the major data points that I look at with all of my brands, because I want to be able to see, oh, you're not profitable. No, duh, because your average order value is low, your retention is low, and your customer acquisition cost is huge. No wonder you're not actually profitable. And that points to an actual effectiveness problem within their marketing overall. And now she was able to actually profit in 2025 $200,000 out of her business that was growing. We did grow her revenue, but we did grow her profitability per dollar as well by so much. We 4x'd her profit and we didn't 4x her revenue in 1 year. But what we did is we optimized everything at the baseline of her business. Now this profit allows her to market harder this year. It allows her to invest in this expansion. It allows her to feel more secure in her business. It allows for her to build for her future. Again, her major goal was to actually put money in the bank to start saving for a major expansion that they want to buy, build, whatever later down the road. And that was her major goal. Maddie, I need to start building more profit overall because I want to save for my major long-term goal. She was looking for 5 to 10 years down the road, and she knew that only profiting $50K a year didn't allow her to invest back into her business like she wanted to, nor did it allow her to actually invest in the future and save money and actually build that overall net worth of her business. I do want to note, the beginning of 2025, she came to me saying, hey, my 2024 numbers don't look the way that I want to. By the end of 2025, her profit had 4x'd. Now it's 2026, and we are actually taking part of that 200,000. We're not just putting all of that into the bank, because to profit 20% in any business, she profited a little under 20% for just easy numbers. If this was a 7-figure company and she profited 20%, $200,000. If we were to really look at this overall, to profit 20% is a really healthy profit margin. Now, she's a stable company. They've been around for a while, so it's not abnormal. But what we were able to do is she was still wanting to expand. She was still saying, Maddie, my business isn't where I want it to be. And so now this year, what we're doing, instead of focusing on profit, because we've already optimized and we know things are optimized for profit, now we're taking part of that 200,000 and we're actually investing it back into the rapid expansion of her business. Last year, we focused on optimization and profit. This year, we're focusing on massive expansion. How can we get out there? How can we be seen by more people? How can we actually pump this brand into the world in a big way to be seen by a lot of people, to really grow that? So if she was, making 1.2 last year, now we can go on, okay, can we 4x your revenue? Because we know your profit is also going to stand there. However, if I have a client that is making a lot of revenue can mean whatever, but even if they're making $200,000, but they're not actually profiting, before I add revenue onto this, I want to figure out, why are you not profitable? What do we need to do? And for some, it's just, hey, you've invested into everything that you need to. We just need to actually make it convert now. And for others, it's saying, we need to get you out of this lease. We need to fire some employees. When it comes to profit, everything looks different, but profit is always a focus. Profit is what allows for us to feel comfortable in our business. I have some clients that profit is not our goal because they're in a rapid expansion period, because they're saying, no, Maddie, I want to invest every dollar we have this year that we made last year back into the business. I have some clients that say, no, I'm trying to save to buy a brick and mortar, or I'm trying to save so I can make more money personally. Everybody's goals in business are very different, but oftentimes profitability is the bottom line as to, okay, let's flex how much profitability we need. Even I have clients come to me 3 years before they know that they want to sell their company, and they say, hey, I'm making $10 million a year. In order to sell my company, I need to prove profit. Then we optimize for profitability, right? Those are times that we want to optimize for profitability because we need it to be marketable. We need to be able to invest back into our business. We need to be able to scale. There's also times that are saying, hey, we just made a bunch of profit. Let's take half of that profit and reinvest all of it back into the business so we can drastically expand. So when we look at business and we look at growth overall, this is why understanding your direction and your future and your 3 to 5 year plan as to where you want to go is necessary, because you have to optimize for different pieces. It's why it's the first question that I ask people when they come to me for support is, what is your actual goal? Because some people tell me, Maddie, I just want to get to $100 million a year, whatever that takes, I'm in for. And some people say, Maddie, I want to be able to take home $200,000, whatever it takes for me to build a business that I can take home $200,000 a year. I don't care. Those are two very different business models. Or if somebody wants to sell their company, or if somebody wants to be a legacy brand that goes into retail, all of those different ideas are a different direction. And you need to know, this is my direction, this is my end goal, so we can actually build a plan that is fit for you. Now, if this client came to me and said, Maddie, I just want to grow my revenue, I would have said, all right, let's do that. But this plan would have looked very different for this client. This plan would have looked very different for anybody that comes to me. Their plan has to look different. This is where that business growth is nuanced. So your business advice has to be nuanced as well. So this is a case study. You could make this exact same changes and you probably would see an increase in profit overall, honestly, because these are things that are pretty standard to increase profit, but it's not a one size fits all approach when it comes to increasing profit. There's a lot of things. Again, sometimes it's labor. Sometimes it is looking at your expenses overall. Sometimes I tell people you're way over investing into your rent. Sometimes I'm saying, hey, you're way over spending on your labor. This is why understanding benchmarks, looking at your numbers and not ignoring your financials all year is really, really important. Now, profitability is one of the major things that I help especially established brands build, because once you're to the point of being a little bit more established, you have a foundation, this year that you'll make 7 figures doing the exact same thing. You have this baseline. We're building profit. Profit helps you build into the future. Profit helps you build everything else. It's like having a savings account personally. It allows for you to feel more secure and allows for you personally to be able to go and do whatever you need to do in your life as well. This is what we're talking about here. This was a real case study of a client that was in strategic advisory that we were able to work with. If this is resonating with you and you're saying, Maddie, I have sales, I know how to make sales, but my profit is incredibly low. If you're saying, Maddie, when do I actually start making money from this? I'm making $1 million in my business, but at the end of the day, I'm only bringing home 40K. It doesn't really feel like something that I want to be doing, right? What we really have to look at here is that profit is intentionally built. I think there's this narrative out there that profit doesn't come in business, or on the opposite side, that you should be profiting immediately. It does take time to build profit. It takes time to really build a business, because in the beginning of your business, to be honest, you should be investing all of your profit back into the growth. But at a certain point, you can start saving for the future as well. And that is what we were doing with this client. If you are ever interested in support with profitability overall, or with building your business, optimizing any of those systems, you can click the link in the show notes. And we do have spots available right now as the spots last for one-on-one strategic advisory. If you love the podcast, you will absolutely die over having me in your business as a business growth partner with you. This is just one of the many stories that we could share about revenue growth, profitability, selling a really profitable company, whatever it looks like for you, no matter the stage, we absolutely can help you. We are here to help you become a category leader, but to also have a company that is very safe, secure, and healthy, so you can build a freedom-filled life there as well. I hope this was helpful. I know you guys absolutely love a case studies episode to really get into the nitty-gritty of what people are actually doing to grow. And this was a good one, all about profitability. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 at the end of 2026 to talk about how her expansion phase went. Last year was all about profit. This year is all about expansion. We're focusing a lot on marketing, a lot of acquisition, a lot of top of funnel. Now that we've basically optimized her marketing, her sales, and her profit, we know that that will come, and we know that it'll be profitable. We've optimized kind of the foundation of her brand, even her product suite. We know all of that is optimized. Now it's all about getting it out there in a big way and being known in a different way as well. I hope this was helpful for you. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Growth Podcast. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So if you love this one, make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a conversation. If you want more conversations with me and other business owners, make sure that you join our completely free podcast community, the Founders Cafe. The link is in the show notes. You can get bonus resources, access to free coaching calls, as well as connect with like-minded business owners like yourself. Make sure that you rate and review the podcast 5 stars, share it with a friend to keep those conversations moving, and come back every Tuesday and Friday. I'll see you there.